Diolch am ymuno ni yng Nghanadledd Cenedlaethol Seren 2018. Ewch yn bellach. Thank you for joining us in the Seren National Conference 2018, Above and Beyond. Dyma sesiwn. This is session Diweddariad Derbyniadau Brifysgol. University Admissions Update.
I'm going to be talking to you today, giving you a bit of an update on all things UCAS. So before I do sort of get into kind of the meat of the presentation, I always, whenever I do any sort of external talk, training, presentation, I like just to say exactly who UCAS is and what we do. So we're an independent charity, and our charitable aim is to help people get access to higher education. The main reason that you'll interact with UCAS, as a teacher, as an advisor, is supporting your students as they apply through UCAS using the undergraduate application service. We also run an application service for postgraduate teaching. We also do an application for conservatoires, so specialist music, drama and performing arts classes, and then also a separate postgraduate application service across 4 UK countries. Everything that we do is now done online via ucas.com. So we have in the region of 26 million visits to our website every year. A lot of the visits to the website is for application, but we also provide a lot of data and insight on the sector, and that's what I'm going to be talking to you about briefly today as part of the presentation. Before I get into data, I think it's worthwhile just taking a bit of a moment just to reflect on what's happening in the sector. I'm sure working in secondary education, you're well aware of all of the changes which are happening. It's a really turbulent time in education at the moment. There are significant changes happening at every level. So we've got changes to qualifications, we've got changes to teaching, but also there's increased scrutiny on higher education, the cost of higher education, value for money is a big sort of hot topic for debate. Coupled with that, we've got other issues like the way that universities are now operating in terms of unconditional offer making. And we've also got, dare I say it, the dirty word of Brexit on the horizon. That is also producing a lot of unknowns, not only in higher education, but society more generally. But when you're supporting students, it makes it a really difficult time now to offer that advice. In the past, perhaps, when you're supporting students, you could be quite comfortable in the advice that you're giving. Certain students with certain grade profiles, you would recommend they apply to certain courses, certain universities. Now, the picture is not as clear as it once was. Coupled with that, we've got the increased sort of visibility and financial support for apprenticeships. That is certainly affecting the higher education market. We do have higher or degree level apprenticeships now which are available. They're kind of a different mechanism and different route from sort of secondary education into higher education. So every year, UCAS produce an end of cycle report which basically reflects on the past year, the past cycle, and this report was released last Thursday. It's released in 4 different stages, so every week between now and the first week in January there'll be a new report released, new chapters. But the first one focused on kind of the headline figures. So numbers, overall numbers of students not only applying but placed fell again. This wasn't unexpected. We are aware of certain factors, the main one being the declining number of 18-year-olds in the UK at the moment, and I'll sort of draw on that in a bit more detail on the next slide. But the other things I've mentioned, things like apprenticeships, things like Brexit, have certainly also had an impact on the overall number of students applying. In terms of higher education now, higher education is still seen as, not only within the UK, but outside the rest of the world, UK higher education is still seen as a very desirable location. We get students applying to the UK from pretty much every country in the world. I think last year was just over 200 different countries sent students to the UK. So higher education is still seen as a very attractive destination. So the key driver for the declining numbers of students placed through UCAS is that declining population of 18-year-olds. This is a trend which is set to continue right up until 2021. Why am I telling you this? You guys probably already know this, but actually it's having quite a significant consequence on the way that universities are operating. So universities used to have number controls placed on them. In 2012, number controls were removed from universities, effectively meaning universities could recruit however many students they saw fit. This has really placed a massive strain on the sector. Universities are really sort of struggling to recruit the level of students they need to effectively stay financially viable universities are a business. They need to recruit a certain number of students to be able to exist and provide the sort of education that they do. This means that it's a really great time to be applying to university. If you've got students, the students you're supporting who are on the fence about whether to apply or not, it's a really great time to be applying, but also to be aspirational in the applications they're making. Students who are unsure whether they should or shouldn't apply, you can really use some of these figures to say, actually, if you apply, you've got a great chance of applying. In 2017, 95% of students who made 5 choices on their application received at least 1 offer. So really positive stat, and really would just reinforce the point that if students want to apply, they should be really encouraged to do so. I should always add a caveat to that it is a great time to be applying to university. Doesn't mean that all of your students are going to get placed at all of their university or get offers at all of their universities, but it is a really good time to be optimistic and aspirational. Because the higher education sector now is effectively a market, we are seeing the marketisation of the sector. One of the ways that is kind of manifesting itself is that more and more students, and you might have experienced this yourself, are applying late in the cycle, but still being successful. So this cycle, another huge increase in the number of students directly applying, so into clearing. So after the 30th of June, they're submitting an application and being successful. Some students are waiting until they get their results, see the results are better than perhaps they expected, and they can still then apply in confidence that they get placed at a university of their choice. And that is part of the system. The system is designed to allow that, and I think it's worth kind of bearing that in mind, supporting students, not only at the moment when you're probably rushing to get applications in for the deadline, but kind of throughout the next sort of year, 18 months, next summer, if you have students who haven't applied, they get good grades, you can encourage them to do so, safe in the knowledge that actually, with a bit of research, a targeted application can be successful. One of the biggest challenges in the sector, in higher education sort of generally, is the whole thing of widening participation. So if you sort of believe some kind of news articles or some kind of the rhetoric from universities, you probably think that actually this is a thing that's getting better year on year. More people are accessing higher education, which is true, but actually widening participation is still something which is a bit of an issue. We're not seeing an increased numbers proportionally of students from widening participation backgrounds going into university. There is also a big gender gap in university. It still remains a fact that if you're an 18-year-old female in the UK, you're more likely to go to university than an 18-year-old male is to complete a UCAS application. Lots of reasons to that. I just think if you are supporting young men or thinking about applying to university, is there any barriers kind of perceived or otherwise that are potentially putting men off against sort of females applying? And there it just shows that the gap is increasing year on year, and for this year, for the first time, there's 10% difference between males and females at age 18. So, just kind of to sort of sum up the key facts or the key sort of headlines. Overall numbers is down. It's not down to a significant rate. I'm not saying the higher education sector is suddenly going to collapse tomorrow. The higher education sector in this country is very healthy. It's a huge demand from across the world and also within the UK. If you're an 18-year-old student, it really is the time of the applicant. I can't sort of stress that enough. It really is a great time to be applying. But as I said, it makes the role of an advisor that much more complicated in kind of these uncharted waters. Does anyone have any questions on sort of the data side of things before I move into unconditional offers in more detail? So, unconditional offers, potentially quite a contentious issue whenever I come out and speak to teachers and advisors. They are going up. They can't argue that. The data clearly shows that increased numbers of unconditional offers are being made every cycle. That is definitely coincided with the removal of number controls from universities. So first of all, UCAS, we're not a governing body of the higher education sector. We can't tell universities how to make offers. Universities are completely autonomous in the way that they make offers. As an advisor though, it's really important that you think about the support and the advice that you'll give your students if they receive unconditional offers. In terms of just raw numbers, the proportion of students getting unconditional offers is certainly on the increase, and you can see kind of by that graph the rate at which it's growing year on year. More and more students are being made unconditional offers. 22%, or nearly 23% of 18-year-olds received at least one unconditional offer this year. We did release a report in July, which goes through that in sort of detail in terms of raw numbers, but also last week we released a report which kind of delves a lot more deeper into it. We've got information packs for advisors, for students, but also for universities advising on good practice, just kind of raising it as an issue, not kind of having this big elephant in the room, but actually it's happening, this is good practice advice, this is where these things to consider. We know absolutely, we've got data proves it, that unconditional offers have had an adverse effect on level 3 attainment across the UK. Some of the stats there on the board are probably quite sort of stark and quite telling. It is something that UCAS, as I said, we don't have any kind of powers. We'd love to be able to have those powers or maybe kind of shape debate more than we can do, but at the moment we're not in a position to do that. The Office for Students was newly formed in January of this year. They are potentially going to be releasing some more kind of powers and more kind of restrictions over the sort of offer-making practice. What I would say is that any students, well, it's 3 things about level 3 attainment. Even if you have an unconditional offer and your attainment does suffer, you need to think 3 things. First and foremost, that attainment will stay with you for the rest of your life. So you might get into university, have a great time at university, but when you come to enter the job market, if your level 3 attainment isn't strong, are you going to be in a strong position to get the job that you want? Possibly not. Secondly, the material you study at level 3 often is the foundation for higher education study, whether it be directly or indirectly. Increasingly, this is anecdotally, we're seeing that universities are offering kind of top-up courses for first years to maybe improve or top up skills that they expected to be there in students and aren't there. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, most relevant to an 18-year-old, what happens if you change your mind in 6 months' time? Maybe you start at university, you don't like your course, and then you want to reapply, your grades aren't strong enough, you're really going to not give yourself the best opportunity of getting the place that you want. I know I'm preaching to the choir a lot here. I know all of you guys will have had to kind of banged your head against the wall with unconditional offers, but I think it's just reinforcing that and just thinking about that kind of level of advice and guidance you'll give your students if they receive unconditional offers. And here just signposting the guidance we have on our website. It's all freely available to use. So if you do want to read out a little bit more around it, please feel free to do so. Unconditional offers are usually seen as quite a binary thing. People think they're either brilliant or they're terrible. Actually, the kind of research we've done shows that there's a lot more to it. There's lots of different reasons why universities might want to make an unconditional offer. It might be that actually the student's well-being is going to be increased or improved by making an unconditional offer. It might be they're applying for a course in maybe performing arts or something where true academic performance or academic performance alone isn't the only indicator the university is looking for. They might be looking for a portfolio of work, it might be an audition. And there's lots of other reasons, or sort of 13 sort of main types or reasons why universities might make an unconditional offer. What we're looking to do as part of this guidance is really just signpost that good practice. As I said, we don't have those powers to control universities or advise how they operate, but we are seeking to provide guidance and inform the debate with our data. So moving on to the current cycle, we only seen one sort of key deadline, the October the 15th deadline. Overall numbers, again, were increased for this year, for the October the 15th deadline. This is, on the face of it, really positive and really encouraging. But usually, the October the 15th deadline isn't a great indicator for the rest of the cycle. We have to wait till the January the 15th data is released to really have a true picture of what's happening. So moving on to something I wanted to make you guys aware of. UCAS, we are launching a new portal for teachers, for advisors in March next year. This is going to replace the current systems and current tools that you use. So if you use Apply for Advisors and or Advisor Track, that won't be available to you for your current Year 12s. So this new portal will be replacing it. The portal is going to be supported, the rollout of the portal is going to be supported by lots of training. We are in the process of developing a lot of kind of online resources, training guides, e-learning modules, interactive modules. But we're also going to be doing a number of exhibitions across the UK, so there's ones in Cardiff. But if there's enough demand for it, we can come out to schools and colleges and centres around the UK, so on demand, if you need us to. The UCAS process isn't changing, kind of the business rules, the way that the system operates isn't changing, so students can still apply to 5 choices, and they still have to write a personal statement, they'll still have to have a reference, still have to have a predicted grade, the deadlines aren't changing, but the way you, as a teacher, as an advisor, support students will be changing. So, the first, and I think this is the best thing about the portal, is currently, you don't have real-time access to the data of your students. You don't see the progress, you don't see the offers they're made. The portal will allow you to view your student's application in real time. So if they get made an offer right now, through UCAS, you could log on and you'll be able to see right now what's happened, what's changed. This will allow you to have obviously greater visibility, but also more confidence when giving advice and support to those students. You know, a student comes up to you, asks you to explain something, or ask if they're not sure, you will have that ability to do it. What's also happening is for the portal, it's making it a lot more user-friendly. The portal that you currently use was designed in the early 2000s, is now quite outdated, quite archaic. This new portal is going to save you a lot of time. It's going to be really intuitive, really easy to use. Lots of things that we know are pain points at the moment are going to be addressed, and basically just make your lives hopefully that much easier. One thing that advisors often talk to us about and kind of complain about is they can't find students' applications, or they can't sort applications quickly or easily. You kind of have to know what you're doing to find certain things. This is a screenshot of what it's going to be like, or the search function as part of the new UCAS portal. It may not look exactly like this, but effectively you're going to be able to search for your students by a variety of different things. So personal ID number, first name, surname. As I said, just making your lives that much more easy, that much more simple when using UCAS. We're well aware that kind of the UCAS part of your role might only be 5%, in some cases it might be even less. So again, just a real time saver. You're also going to be able to filter your applicants by deadline. So if you do have students applying for the early deadline, you'll be able to easily identify that very quickly. A few other changes I just wanted to make you aware of as well at UCAS. The first one is, in the past, or up until last week, if a student submitted their application and then suddenly they dropped an A-level, or they changed an A-level, any changes at all, they had to go through a very manual process, sending emails to us and to universities to update all the information. Now, you as a teacher, as an advisor of a young person, can update that online via a portal, and the students can do it themselves. Again, it's something which probably should have been released ideally a couple of years ago, if not longer, but this will hopefully be a huge time saver. As long as you have the student's full name and their ID number, you will be able to access and change details through ucas.com. I wanted to also let you know about a few things which are changing in terms of technology. We're trying to sort of modernise and digitalise our offering. One of the ways that we're doing that, we've already started a trial, is our customer service. Part of it, as I stress, part of it, is now serviced by AI. So effectively, a student asks a question on Facebook, Twitter, any social media channel, any time, day or night, they will get an instant response. Now, it's something which has been intensively tested and is still regularly checked by humans, but actually, the majority of questions that we get probably will be able to be serviced via AI. So we're just kind of streamlining our service, making it more efficient. And those students who need the additional support will be able to kind of focus more time and sort of specialism on supporting those questions. I'm sure you guys working in schools and colleges have had lots of changes to your working practices because of the introduction of the data protection laws, GDPR. One of the massive changes as far as UCAS, or two massive changes as far as UCAS is concerned, one is the removal of criminal convictions question for the majority of applications, and two, in the past, if a student linked their application to your school using a buzzword, automatically you would then be able to track their application, you'd be able to see any offers, and you'd be able to see the application. Now students physically have to opt in. If they don't, once the application has been sent by you, you won't be able to see its progress, you won't be able to monitor it. So it's really important, if you want to be able to support students, view the applications in Advisor Track, they hit this opt-in button. If they submit the application without ticking it, you can opt in, but it can take up to 10 working days because of all of the kind of new changes to regulation. So just something to make your students aware of, particularly as we approach the 15th of January deadline.